This, and this has been shot on a 5-year-old 8-bit camera. If you think that looks pretty good, then you should stay and watch this. Before I can do any more A/B tests between the A7S II and the A7S III, well, that camera sold, like really fast. Luckily, I've shot a bunch of footage before this with the same lenses and stuff like that, so that I can show you how to make the 8-bit image look pretty much just as good as an A7S III. This applies to an A7 III, A7S II, A7R, you know, any of those cameras that's an 8-bit codec with S-Log2, you're gonna be able to do this and you're gonna be able to get a really good image out of it. I promise. I mean, if you look at those images, I mean, does it look good? Does it look good? I think it looks good. But let's first talk about the problems that 8-bit has. It just doesn't have enough information. So when you try to push the colors too much, it's gonna fall apart. First of all, the dynamic range it's okay. It's not bad actually, but it starts to fall apart when you start to push it. The second thing is the color. You're in fact taking in less color and then you're trying to boost it up in post, and that just doesn't work. There's 3 stages for this. So there's the capture stage, and then there's the processing stage, right? And then there is the output stage. So in the capture stage, you have to make sure that you get your color balance correct. So that's your Kelvin. So you're gonna have to manually color balance, white balance with a gray card. This is perfectly 18% gray, and this is a gray card that you can purchase from, I got it from Film Tools, but now you can probably get it on Amazon. Basically, you point this at the lens and you make a custom white balance. That is like the most important thing. You have to do that whenever your light changes. Okay, the second thing is your exposure. You need to make sure that if you're shooting with the S-Log2, which in this case we are, you need to nail your exposure. I think it's totally fine to hit it right on the mark, which is you don't need to underexpose it or overexpose it. But what you need to make sure to do is you need to know what your dynamic range of your scene is. So your lighting ratio. It's better to limit your lighting ratio when you're lighting the scene. This particular scene is actually, it looks like it's a lot of light and dark, but it's not. It's probably only about 4 stops. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure there's not too much over, not too much under, and then you just nail it right on the spot for the skin tone. So in order to create the workflow that I've figured out, I experimented a lot actually. I've tested every single S-Log combination, Cine 4 combination with the different gammas, different knees, all that stuff. And it seems like, you know, you don't want to do too much with the gamma because you're baking in too much of a curve that's a little bit weird. So what you want to do is, S-Log2 seems to be the best. And I think a lot of people agree on that, have been agreed on that for a long time. But the thing that I never was quite sure about was the color. If there's something good in front of the camera, like if there's something like a colorful background and stuff like that, if that color is very saturated as it is, then it's gonna look good on camera. It doesn't really matter if you take it with the iPhone or whatever, as long as the lens is clean and all that stuff and not flaring, it's gonna capture that color. It should be able to. So with these Sony cameras, you wanna make sure that it has the most optimal settings to capture that. And in this case, I found that you just have to boost the color. What I ended up doing is you want to boost your color all the way up to plus 32. You can do this with any of the A7 or any camera that has S-Log2, and you want to do that so that you can capture all of the available color bits that's going into the camera. And now, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. This is just something that I've found works from many years of shooting. I've been shooting for probably 15 years now. You can take away the color later, but you can't add it. You can't add it. It's never gonna come back. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna look at is we're gonna go into DaVinci, and I'm gonna show you all the nodes that I use. And this is called a power grade, where you stack the nodes, if you do it exactly like the way I'm doing it, you're gonna get this great image that you've seen from this 8-bit camera. So we're now in DaVinci and we have our favorite model, Sarah, here. Let's take a look at the nodes. So the first one I have here is a color transform. I want to take the Sony S-Log2 and transform it into Rec. 709. So in this case, we have S-Gamut 3 Cine and S-Log2. I'm going to turn all these nodes off. This is just normal S-Log2, and we transform it into Rec. 709. Doesn't look that good, but we're gonna work on that. So then what I do is I just throw on my SuperLUT, which is here, and then I put on another node here in between, which is my adjustment LUT, where I do all my corrections and stuff like that. So that's where I put in a little curve and make sure that I have a good image. And this is kind of where your colorist skills come into play. Let's just clear this node, and then let's just go for it. Yeah. So we're just gonna work with 3 just to make it very, very simple. To do some other stuff, it's a little bit more complicated. The first thing I like to do, I want to make sure that my curves are correct, and I want to make sure my highlights are good. Just want to bring that down a little bit here. Bottom is fine. Give it some oomph. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the individual color. Basically, I'm gonna work with the blue first. I can work with the top here. I'm gonna make it as neutral as possible. We want that commercial look. With color grading, there's no real way to do it. When I first got into it, it was when film was transitioning from analog into digital. All the new digital colorists were all new, like nobody knew what they were doing. The power that you have in your hands these days, if you're a kid right now watching this, dude, you have no idea how good you have it. No idea. We don't want to break the 8-bit image, and the best way to do that is to do as little as possible. That's like tip number 3. This is just one adjustment, and we've already gone from there to there. If we turn off all the nodes, this is the flat image, and then we have that now. So what you want to do is print it a couple times, do different versions, throw it on your phone, throw it on your iPad. Even if you have a calibrated monitor, it doesn't matter. People look at it on different screens, so you also need to look at it on different screens and check, kind of get a good calibration for your own eyeball. In DaVinci, what you can do is you can save this as a still, right? And you can then go here to your gallery, you have different looks, right? So since I've saved this other one, see, I can compare different looks. It actually looks pretty good. This is what I had before. I'm gonna switch over to Premiere because I also want to show that it works in different programs, but it's a little bit different. I used Premiere for the last 5-6 years, and I've recently switched over to DaVinci Resolve, and I'll make a whole nother video about that. But this is the way you can use the LUT and get something really, really good, really, really fast. So we want to use Lumetri, so let's throw that in there. There it is, and here we go. So what we want to do is we want to throw on the LUT that I have. It's called a Sony SuperLUT, and we've thrown that in the creative portion. The reason why I've done that is because I can adjust the intensity from 0 to, what is this, 200? If anything needs to be adjusted. But I tend to leave it on 100, and then I start to, so I basically use the same technique. I start going into the curves first. I can adjust all together or individually. And basically I start going in and start adjusting this. And of course, if you don't want to do this, if you think the image looks fine, then go for it. You know, it's gonna have, see, if you just turn this curve off, right? And let's see, okay, here it is. So this is with it off, and this is with it on. And I know Sony has their own S-Log2 to Rec. 709 conversion, but that looks a little bit too much, in my opinion. I've designed this SuperLUT to make it look as commercial as possible, which means it retains the dynamic range. It doesn't give you like crazy saturated colors right off the bat, but the color is there, like I said, because we've shot it properly and we've color balanced properly. This is what nobody tells you that you need to do, input and output. So I've gotten this to a pretty good place. So you see that there, see this here. So there's two ways of doing the color layer. There's a lazy way, and then there's the proper way. The proper way is to do every clip separately. Now, if you're lazy, and if you just want to throw the same grade on your whole entire edit, you can do that too, as long as you have as long as you shot it properly, you can do that. So in that case, you want to just throw in an adjustment layer, and then you can just drag that over to all of your clips. And that's sort of the way that people have been teaching others on YouTube, which I probably don't recommend, because you need to understand the whole point of color grading is to match each clip to each other so that everything looks very uniform and is continuous. Go and get the SuperLUT. You can use any LUT, but if you want to get this particular look, this commercial look, just get the SuperLUT, follow all these steps, make sure you capture everything correctly, you set your color balance, your ISO and your exposure and stuff like that correctly, and you should be able to get an image that looks really, really good, that is going to be able to compete and match all of your 10-bit cameras and Red cameras and Alexa cameras and all that stuff. Big films have used A7S2s as B cameras, C cameras, and they've put in that image in there and you've never noticed. So you know it's possible. You can do it too. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something today, and we will see you in the next video.
Push it to the limit, push it to the limit. Going 0 to 1,000 and no stop.